Hey, we're back again. It's the HOLOCRON Chronicles over on the Secret Fringe Night Podcasting Network. This is episode 116, also episode 2 of the soft reboot. I am your Jedi flying X-Wing guy. I don't know. I didn't come up with a title for myself like Trek Lord of West Michigan. But you know what? I'm your wars. I don't want to say warlord because then I'm going to have somebody come into my house. I'll just have to be me. But I'm joined by my faithful X-Wing flying co-pilot, Mr. Peter Stein. Peter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And we have a gentleman breaking out of the Patreon into the main stable of our program, my dear, dear friend, my pickleball master, my main guy, Mr. Jonathan Snedeker. Jonathan, welcome to HOLOCRON.
Thank you, Charlie. It's good to be here. Good to see you too, Peter.
All right. Well, anytime we have anybody on one of the main programs, whether it be this one over on Code 47, which Peter and I also host, or SFU, or certainly Co-op Mode, which Todd runs, we always ask the person, hey, what's your story with blank? Like the thing that we're talking about. So my question to you is, what is your connection to Star Wars from the start? Hit us with it.
All right. So, as you know, the 80s had a lot to do with, and the late 70s had a lot to do with Star Wars. And I became very interested in film and how film was being made. Steven Spielberg was on the scene, and of course, George Lucas, and some really great directors, and a lot of good movie producing was going on at that time. So, I was off to college in 1980, and in 1981, I decided I would explore film. So I did minor. Back then, it was a minor studies program through the School of American Thought and Language, and I studied film. So when you asked me to talk about American Graffiti, that was pretty good for me because I do like exploring film. I studied film from 81 to 85. I did get my minor completed, and one of the high notes was I studied with a professor and screenwriter, Jim Cash, who worked with Jack Epps Jr. The course that I had him for was American Thought and Language. It was America on Film, I believe.
Nice.
I believe I have that right. And Jim Cash comes in the first day of class, and he says, 20% of you will get an A, 20% of you will get a B. 20% of you will get a C, 20% will get a D, and 20% of you will get an F. And if you're going to get an F, don't bother coming. So I went to every class, and I was fortunate to finish in the top 20%. And I really enjoyed studying with him, specifically just because he was so well connected with Hollywood at that time. I graduated in 85, and in 86, his big film broke. Yes, Top Gun. So that was a big deal. So I was with him during the time he was doing all that screenwriting.
That's crazy. We are, of course, if you don't, cool. if you're not a Michigan person, we're talking about mine and Jonathan's alma mater, which would be our beloved
Michigan State University. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's how I got into film. I wanted to do television commercials. I wasn't really interested in making film, but I thought I should understand it. So, and as you know, I worked for PBS for a stretch, and I also worked for Comcast Television, and was able to produce some decent commercials. I wouldn't call me top notch, but I had a lot of fun doing it, which was great.
Yeah, so that's awesome.
So that's my connection to film. And when you said let's review a movie, I'm all in. So.
What about Star Wars? How did you get your go with Star Wars?
Well, Indiana Jones and Star Wars. I went to the Star Wars film. I was one of the ones that waited in line, and really enjoyed the film. It was really my first, I would say, eye-opening experience from George Lucas. He did other films before that, like American Graffiti, and I was aware of those, but I was a teenager when that came out. So, as every high schooler will tell you, you had to go see that movie or you weren't going to fit in at school. So I didn't do the collecting. Probably should have in hindsight, but I just enjoyed the film aspects of it. And the directing was, they started with, was it New Hope? Yep. And that one, they had those special effects, and I was like, wow, they're really getting into the special effects were coming of age at that time. And like they were really doing
Right.
some cool stuff. It used, if you look at things before that, special effects were usually
Like
claymation or just
like
junk.
Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. Like cardboard. They're moving cardboard. Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, that's my connection to film, and my connection to Star Wars is I was there when it came out. So
He's the guy. All
yeah, I
right.
enjoyed it.
Peter is chomping at the bit to ask our one holdover new guest Star Wars question from the before times on the show. Peter, go for it.
All right. So, question is, if you were to live in a galaxy far, far away with all of its dangers and, you know, multiple factions and what have you going on, violence is part of the DNA, as it were. Most of us would probably end up getting killed off screen, but what kind of horrific way do you think, if you were living in a galaxy far, far away, how do you think you would meet your demise?
I don't think I'd get shot down by a TIE fighter. I probably would go the way of, I would go to learn the ways of the Jedi, and I would probably get eaten by a swamp creature.
Right.
That's probably the route I'd go. I never would find the Force. I guess it wasn't with me. So, yeah, I just picture tentacles dragging me to the bottom of a swamp. That's pretty much how I think I would go.
Back of the Dianoga.
Oh my God, I absolutely love it. Well, cool. Well, we're going to get into talk about American Graffiti in just a second here, but while Jonathan can be witness to us doing our first segment, which is called Paying the Bills, the wonderful people over on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon squad over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, you can get exclusive programs. You get this show earlier than any other. We drop it on a weekend. The rest of the world doesn't get it until the following Wednesday. So early Star Wars for you. No ad shows, an exclusive Discord channel. When you get signed up, that first week is free. Your first month after that is half off, and then you can stick around for as little as $2 a month. It's the greatest bargain in entertainment, as far as I'm concerned, certainly. But I mean, maybe my opinion is biased. I don't know. On our, these folks are definitely clued in. My buddy Derek, who is the figure dude, Francie, who does my wife's hair, Mr. Xbox Expansion Pass, Luke Lore, and my uncle Tim Horan down there in South Haven, Michigan. Wonderful folks. We love you all. And these people too: John Sedorf, Brendan Myers, Queen HD, Matthew Keel, who I like to spar about when it comes to music stuff over on our Discord. My buddy Kurt Krug has helped us out with a lot of the great interviews we've done. Tanya Lee, Chipotle Bear, Famous Seamus, Jay Newport 007, Cam the Movie Man, Brian Osterman, and Osterman, a.k.a. Darth Prozac, and Mr. Freight Conductor. Grateful for each and every one of you. And again, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Try us out for a week for free, half off the first, and then $2 a month is a tremendous bargain in my most humble of opinions. No real Star Wars news this time around, unless I'm very much mistaken. Peter, are you thinking of anything I missed?
Nothing popped up in my feed. So.
All right. Well, then let's get into it. We let you know last time we were going to be talking about American Graffiti. We've mentioned it a couple of times at the top of the show. So now we're going to do it. I'm going to blast through this summary, and then I'm going to cut it over to Jonathan and Peter and let them first start talking about the film. Peter, your first time seeing it, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep.
I've seen it many times. Jonathan has clearly seen it many times. So this will be a good chat through. But we're talking about again the film, a 1973 coming of age comedy drama directed by George Lucas, produced by his BFF Francis Ford Coppola, written by Willard Hayek and Gloria Katz, who also gave us Howard the Duck. In 1986, that was the writing squad. But the cast is mind-blowing. Richard Dreyfuss, Ron Howard, Paul Lamette, Charles Martin Smith, Candy Clark, Mackenzie Phillips, Cindy Williams, and the incomparable Wolfman Jack. Harrison Ford and Bo Hopkins also appear. This is set in Modesto, California, 1962. A study of cruising and early rock and roll cultures popular amongst Lucas's age group at the time. Through a series of vignettes, it tells the story of a group of teenagers and their adventures throughout a single evening. Now, while Lucas was working on THX 1138, which we talked about last time, Coppola asked him to write a coming-of-age film. The genesis of American Graffiti Took place in Modesto in the early 1960s, as we had mentioned, during Lucas's own growing up. But he was not able to sell this to financiers and distributors until he landed with Universal Pictures after everybody turned him down. He'll find that with Star Wars too. Sorry to jump ahead to our next episode. The first film to be produced by his Lucasfilm production banner, apart from THX 1138, being also worked with Coppola. But film premiered on August 2nd in 1973 at a film festival in Switzerland, and subsequently in the U.S. in August of that year. The film was given a theatrical release after Coppola, fresh off the success of The Godfather, agreed to slap his name on it as an executive producer. Completed for a modest budget of, I love this, I love the math, $777,000, equivalent to only $4.1 million in 2023 money, this says here. American Graffiti became one of the most profitable films of all time, earning $200 million at the box office and home video revenue, which is staggering. The film also received widespread acclaim and was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Widely credited with launching a wave of 1950s and early 1960s nostalgia in American pop culture, influencing the teen comedy genre and reviving interest in early rock and roll amongst the baby boomer generation. 1995 was selected for preservation with the National Film Registry by the Library Congress for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. That's a lot of information. Jonathan, let's talk.
Well, one of the things that jumped out at me initially, and you mentioned it right in the opening there, that Francis Ford Coppola asked him to do a coming-of-age film. And one of the things to know about that particular time, the 1970s, was it was loaded with this genre. There were so many movies being made that were coming-of-age movies. And some of the ones that I saw, because, I arrived in 1962 in July. So, and this movie is set in August of 1962. So I can relate to it because at least I was here,
Right.
But the movie did come out in 73. And so I would have been about 11, I think. And I do remember seeing it before I left high school. So I would have seen it in my teen years. And the coming of age movies that really stuck out at this time, there's a movie called Breaking Away. It's about a Italian bike racer who's actually an American bike racer, but he falls in love with Italian bike racing, and it's like fights with his parents. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but then The Last Picture Show is another one. Carrie, I'm sure you've seen Carrie. That's considered coming-of-age movie. It's a horror film. It's a Stephen King.
With a twist.
Right? Grease is considered a coming-of-age movie. Saturday Night Fever. Bad News Bears, believe it or not, is a coming-of-age movie.
Great flick.
So, exactly. So a lot of this genre was explored during the 1970s. So this film hit at the right time because there was a lot of other films that were popular at that time. It sort of helped drive that film's success. You mentioned the small budget. Yes, it was definitely a small budget. But it did gross about $115 million during that time for a budget of under, $1 million. I think you said
That's
it was
crazy.
$777,000. Yeah, which is the greatest profit to cost ratio at that time. So the movie was hugely profitable. Kind of funny too how this movie evolved, right? So he shoots the film and he gets it done, and I think it was Paramount. I think they were doing it there. They were in negotiations to get this thing released, and they wanted it to be a television movie. They didn't want to put it out on the screen. They didn't think it would draw enough at the box office. And initially, they cut some scenes. There's 3 scenes in particular, which I'll talk about later, that got cut for the first release. So there was a release in 1973, but then they came back and re-released the film in 78, and they put what they cut back into it.
There's a director's cut. He invented it.
So my understanding is I've only seen the 78. If I saw the 73, I don't remember specifically. I probably did see it, but I don't remember the 3 scenes that were cut. I wouldn't have seen it in the movie theater. I would have seen it when it moved to television. I don't know when it actually aired on television. But in '78 they did re-release it, and what you gentlemen probably watched was the 1978 release.
Right. This sounds that way. Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
like Lucas with the Star Wars original trilogy, which we'll get into talking to
And with
in later
THX.
segments. And the THX, yeah, he goes back, and when he adds in the bits that were missing, that's all that exists of the film. So, in particular with Star Wars, you get people who bitch nonstop, oh, bring back the specialized editions. And as far as what is now Disney is concerned, that's an anachronism that just doesn't exist anymore. Or so they say, but that could change.
So the three scenes that were cut is when Toad stops in front of the after he has that accident with the guy out on the strip. Like he backs up into the guy and then he blames the guy for the accident. It's like so funny. He's like, "I won't report you this time," and then he drives off.
Be careful, a bit more careful, goddammit.
So he stops in front of that car salesman.
Oh God.
And that car salesman that got cut.
Oh,
that was cut from the original. That whole gag, yeah, where he's like getting into the car. He's like, "Get away from me!" Yeah, that scene was cut. Another scene that was cut was when they go to the hop at the school. Ronnie Howard and Cindy Williams are doing the snowball dance where they go out on the floor by themselves, and she's crying, and they're having that moment, and they're just getting closer and closer and closer together. And then that teacher comes over, Mr. Crute.
Right.
And he says, "That's it. You guys got to separate," right? So he's basically scolding them, and Ronnie Howard goes,
go kiss a duck or something.
Go kiss a duck. Yeah. Basically, that was it. and that scene was cut. Mr. Crute. Yeah, they cut that out, and then the last one, surprisingly, I was surprised when I read it. Was Harrison Ford singing in the car.
Oh, I love that.
Some Enchanted Evening to Cindy Williams. That was cut.
Yeah, it's not only unlike the character, which has a great name, by the way, Bob Falfa, a.k.a. Boba Fett. A lot of people draw a connection between those two things.
Yeah.
But it's unlike anything Harrison Ford, because you think about Harrison Ford as a mumbly, grumbly, rough and tumble. Yeah, Han Solo, Indiana Jones. Not somebody who's singing Some Enchanted Evening. So that's why it's like, yeah. I
don't know when I've ever heard Harrison Ford sing anything.
I know. I was blown away. Blown away. I guess I had forgotten that was even in there because I just watched it again this morning.
He actually did carry a tune, so at least I feel like, well, maybe there's some untapped talent there. Who knows? But anyway, I was surprised to hear him singing. So yeah. So those three scenes didn't make it the first time around.
Yeah.
So when you say director's cut, it's nice when we get those things back.
Yeah. And those are, three decent scenes. The one with the, principal or whatever, I don't really give a crap about that. But the other two, without a doubt, like if you had to pick 2 out of 3, those would be the ones. So awesome. All right. Well, let's jump on over to Peter for a minute. So Peter, first time seeing this, you're a fair bit younger than me. You're definitely younger than Mr. Snedeker, no offense. So this was not a thing for your generation in any way, shape, or form. Now, I grew up in the 80s, and in the 80s, because Happy Days was still on and because Back to the Future came out, like that 50s and early 60s culture was super strong. And so I was, and then, this is directed by the guy who did Star Wars. I got drawn to it probably at a pretty young age. I don't exactly know when. But, you grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s, and I could imagine how this would just be a complete miss. So talk to us about your initial, takeaways. You said you watched this a couple weeks ago.
Yep. At my house, we did have Back to the Future and stuff, so there was still a little bit of that 50s connections, just not probably as strong. But yeah, when I first saw it, the joke that I made, and this is not a good analogy, but I made it as a kind of a joke, was with my friends, was this felt kind of like the much better version and the 70s version of the early 2000s Napoleon Dynamite. For a very simple reason, is that it was a lot of there wasn't precisely a through line. There is, but it's not like the driving force of the story.
Right.
And so it's a lot of just different bits and pieces that they're all happening at the same time, and they're not all exactly connected other than the theme of them kind of discovering who they are, I guess.
Right.
So with that analogy in mind, this is a much superior film by light years. But that was kind of the first thought that I had, was like, this is a film about high school age kids doing high school age kid things just because. And that's kind of what that's not exactly what it is, but that was like my initial thought when I first saw it. Was just like, okay, we're just kind of doing end of high school. I don't know what I'm planning on doing. And then here's just shenanigans for the sake of shenanigans. That's what it felt like. Like, here, I want to get drunk. I'm not 21 yet, so I'm going to sit here and try to con these people into getting me a beer, and oh look, now my money's stolen. Oh shit. Like, there's just all sorts of just random stuff that's just really funny, but not all connected.
Yeah, everybody has a plot line, but it kind of turns into like Seinfeld, right? Like it's it's about nothing. Things intersect in the end, but in a lot of ways they don't. But our main character is Richard Dreyfuss, so is Kurt.
There is character development there, and there's character development with what's his face,
Ron and Cindy.
Yeah, there's some development, particularly with those groups, but everyone else just kind of there's a little bit, but not a ton.
Stuff. Yeah, exactly. I did note early on, because I went through and I made notes. It's a I have 5 pages of notes, which just means it's a compulsion. And I'm not going to go through these all, but I did love Kurt is a scholarship recipient from the Moose Lodge, which is, Jonathan, help me out here. Are you at all familiar with what those are? It's a social club, right? But it's like the American Legion, but
right. It is a social club. I'm sure they have to be. You have to be nominated to become a member. I'm sure that Kurt's relative of some sort is involved with that group. And then the thing I liked in the film is when they're in there and they're trying to rob the pinball machines. Right. He steps out of the background, and then the guy says, "Oh, Kurt," and he takes him over. Yeah, let's go see the guy from the Moose Lodge that got you the $2,000 check. And that's how it was back then. It's like who you knew, who your friends are, only associate with certain people, and you saw that because the three pharaohs were in there, and at first it wasn't going to go well. You got these hooligans. You got Bo and Manny Padilla or whatever, and then the other guy Ant, but I don't remember. I don't remember him from anything.
Yeah, and I think I wrote on later in the notes. I'm like, how did he get the name? I would love to know. There's a story behind there. I did write his $2,000 in 1962 in 2025 money using my favorite app on my phone. The inflation calculator would be $21,271, which probably paid for all of his college and grad school in 1962. With the whole movie is about cruising, right? So I was watching this morning. April was sitting on the other side of the couch, and she said, "Was cruising a big thing in GR when you were a kid?" Because she is from Gratiot County, which is in the rural part of Michigan, and they will go to Alma, which is the next big town, and it was a big thing. And I said, no, with my group of friends, we would go in a car and cruise up and down Division, which is the main dividing street here in Grand Rapids, and count prostitutes, which is really not very wholesome at all. But that's what we did. I hope people don't still do that. I mean, they've cleaned up Division quite a bit, but hopefully they've cleaned it up at least that much. One of the things that really stood out to me is what an absolute asshole Ron Howard's character is. And it's tough because you think about him as Richie Cunningham, and then he became one of the finest directors of this generation. But his character, their relationship is just frigging awful. But it's also really systemic of the time, isn't it? Because that's just the kind of passive aggressive toxicity that at the end of it, you're like, I would love it if these two split up so that, because they're obviously not at all right for each other. He's mean to her. She's super passive aggressive. They're scrapping all the time. It would be great if he just went off to college. And in the end, he doesn't. And he becomes an insurance salesman, according to little bubbles at the end.
Well, relating it to the time since I was alive, and that was sort of how it was. Ma Bell, the phone company charged you a ridiculous amount of money to call people.
Right.
So for those two to stay in touch while he's out on the East Coast, back east, going to school, it's too much money. They can't afford to keep in touch. So when he's saying, and this was a common conversation for high school students during that time period from the 60s and 70s, and I came out in 80, and you have those conversations where, like, I'm heading off to school, let's not stay exclusive. Let's see other people, which was a common occurrence. I mean, that's pretty normal. So you can say his character was kind of like, not a nice guy, but that's sort of how it was. And
right. They weren't just going to write letters.
Nobody texted, and email didn't exist. Hell, we didn't even have fax machines. So it's just it's a symptom of the time. And in 1962, oh, good grief, you'd have to drive to see him. And like he kept saying, "I'll be back at Christmas. I'll be back at Christmas." And when you're 18 years old, that 3-4 months, that feels like forever because you haven't been on the planet that long.
Right.
So I thought Ron stayed true to the character they had to play, that Steve. Like, he was class president, and some of that he does for his own ego, And Cindy Williams had to explain to him, well, here's how we got together. That was the conversation they had when they were dancing, right? She says, I asked you out. I remember our first kiss, and Ron's just sitting there going, "Oh God, that's right. Oh, that's right." So I think for that character, that's what couples were going through at that time, and then for him to stay after all he did was talk about leaving,
and just being like super awful.
Yeah,
I love because there's a scene.
Who's the guy from Groundhog Day? Who keeps selling insurance?
Oh
Ned.
My God, I know the actor. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, but anyway, that's what Ron becomes. When I saw him become an insurance agent at the end, I'm just laughing. It's like Ned Needle Nose or whatever he keeps.
Needle Nose. Stephen Tobolowsky, that's the name of the actor.
Yeah.
Great character actor.
Yeah, it was a good.
But yeah, there's a oh God, I just lost my train of thought. What is the weird type of car that Kurt is driving? Do you recognize? Is that an old Volkswagen? Do you have any idea?
No, that's a French.
Renault?
That's a Renault. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I'm because you see a Beetle when he's driving around with his ex-girlfriend and Bob, who is a woman, whose name is obviously Roberta or something like that, and he's giving her shit. She drives a very nice classic VW Bug, and I wrote, can 3 people actually be in a Volkswagen Bug at the same time? Does it really have a back seat?
It does.
So it's good you picked up on that because that was when imports started. 1960s, 1970s, you started seeing a lot of those cars.
Yeah.
Where you never saw them in the 50s. It was all the big American-made cars. So
right.
Yeah, but that was a Renault. Yeah, you're right. I'm almost positive.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was definitely a French 4-door. So
yeah.
It was tiny though.
Yeah,
especially compared to the boats it was parked next to.
Oh my God! Yeah, this was kind of Boats 101. Charles Martin Smith, who was the nerdy guy in The Untouchables, one of my favorite films, the first of them to get killed in that movie. And Peter, if you've never seen it, Brian De Palma, 1987. Just trust me on this one. That is a classic. That is an absolute classic.
I've heard tell, but I don't think I've sat down to watch it.
Yeah, you're going to have to trust me on this one. But he was great in this film. I don't know if Jonathan, this showed up in your notes, but when he first enters the film in that great opening scene, which is played over Rock Around the Clock, which I think is what people with their nominative determinism, when they think something into existence isn't real, they think, oh, this movie's ripping off Happy Days. Well, it wasn't, because it came out a year before, but they both have the same opening montage. They have the same opening song, which is, it's a classic of, and again, that was that song was a few years old, obviously, by the time this came out. This is set in '62, and I think it's the late 1950s and Happy Days, and then it goes into the '60s because shows.
But are you going to talk about the Vespa? He comes in on the Vespa.
Go ahead. I won't. Steal
so he rides in on the Vespa and he goes shooting through the scene and he goes into park and he loses control. Yeah, he goes up onto the sidewalk and he hits a garbage can and then just leaves it there.
Right.
And that was totally unplanned.
Right. It was perfect and so great that they left it in. So we get the character of John Milner, who is basically Matthew McConaughey's character from Dazed and Confused. The all right. You know, the older I get, the younger they feel. He's the guy who he's a greaser. He's a grease monkey, I guess, to be more accurate. Works in the local garage, but his entire life is cruising in his, what the hell is that car? Is a 32 Ford something or other. I mean, they say at some point, isn't it something famous?
It's a coupe of some sort.
Yeah, I think you're right about the Ford.
It's a Deuce coupe.
Little Deuce coupe.
Yeah.
By the way, and to touch on one of the most key things, this is what April said when we were watching it. I think this is one of the very first, and I'm not talking about orchestral or instrumental music, desert island soundtracks that anyone could take. There's
right.
maybe
it's a pop. It was the first pop soundtrack.
Right,
really, one of the first to use pop music instead of actually having an original score.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And then other people started, directors started ripping off that idea. So it was early. I don't know if it was the very first.
I'm trying.
But it really stands out because some of
it really works, especially because the way that they use it. I think they call it diegetic music, where like the characters are hearing it most of the time when we are.
Oh, okay.
So it's not just like it's a soundtrack. It's like this is what's going on. Whereas a lot of times with the newer takes on this particular style, there's just pop music for the sake of pop music. It's not part of the whole vibe of what the characters are doing.
Right.
So there's an art to doing it, and I think this nails it. I think that the newer takes, in my not so humble opinion, don't work as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because it straddles the line between just being for the audience, and on the other side of it is a musical where the characters are performing the music. This is simply like I have the radio on, and or like, at the end of the film, and I did love the end of the film when Kurt does, spoiler alert, this isn't a spoiler alert for a 50-year-old movie, Kurt does finally, while struggling throughout the entire film, is, well, I can't decide, should I go away? I think blah, blah, blah. When he does finally leave, and Wolfman Jack, who narrates us through the film and is absolutely iconic. He also sounds exactly like a guy I used to work with back in my newspaper days in Detroit, which is just funny to me. And the other character is Mackenzie Phillips, who is a very kind of a sad, tragic person. Her life. I mean, if you know anything about her background,
but she's still living. She's still alive.
I thought she was dead. I really thought.
Me too, but she's still going. And
oh my gosh!
Well, she had a bout with drug abuse again in like a 2008 time period.
God.
And she was back into rehab, but she's still going.
She is kind of a dead ringer for another old coworker of mine, somebody who I worked with in radio. So I don't want to throw names out there in case somebody hears it and they're like, "Why are you comparing me to so and so?" Like,
don't do that. But let's get back to the soundtrack because you mentioned the cars, and there's, I didn't really analyze all of the different vehicles they had in that. Right? Like who's racing who and what's racing what. I mean, if you're a car buff, you're going to love that about the film, and a lot of people did. But the soundtrack really stands out to me more than the cars because he was picking music that fit with that time period. I actually researched that. I said, okay, I looked at every song that was used in the movie, and I'm like, when did this song come out? And there's nothing past July of '62.
He really nailed it. Wow.
Yeah. The closing credits, they run... what's that song?
It's a Beach Boys song.
Long.
Sitting in my car outside your house. That one.
Yeah. So all summer long. So when that's a 1964 song, and he intentionally picked it for 1964 because they had just shown in the credits what happened to everybody.
Right.
That plane is flying. Kurt's on the plane, and then they flash up during a quiet time. There's no music. All you hear is the motor of the plane, and they put up, here's what happened to John Milner. He died in December of 64, right?
Right.
And actually, in the original film, and this was edited, it used to be June of 64. But to set up More American Graffiti, which was the sequel, they
Oh,
had
yeah.
to re-edit in 78. They actually edited when he died from June. They moved him to December.
Yeah.
And then they also moved, they didn't move any of the other characters because one died in 65 who went missing in action, right?
Yeah.
Toad. And
Yeah.
then they talk about the insurance salesman. He never really left. And then,
Right.
and the other character. So then the music starts and they do All Summer Long, and that's from 64.
Right.
And that was intentional. So, but all the other songs, and then just with this last thing, Green Onions, when they go out to race,
I noticed that too.
they played Green Onions. That was July of 62. So that song was one of the songs that would have been just coming out at that time.
Right.
Because I think it was an August 11 release, and they're all talking about the end of the summer, and that's usually August time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like now, like the time we're recording this.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wrote about those end bubbles. I said everybody's life turned out like shit except for Kurt because he left. Oh, I said it was.
Yeah, he's in Canada.
Yeah.
He went to Canada.
I know. And even though this doesn't align, you see in 10 years later, you do see, which would be 20 years later by the timing of this film, you do see a writer in what looks like a very rustic setting telling the story of his youth, played by Richard Dreyfuss, and it's Stand By Me. And I said, I know it, the characters don't align, but their lives turned out the same. Him and Will Wheaton's character, whose name I can't remember, from that very iconic a coming of age movie set in Oregon, so also on the West Coast. So all right, well, how about other iconic moments or thoughts that you had? Peter, how about you?
The car getting stolen was really funny.
Big time.
Because at least for me, it was like oh yeah, I grew up without, car alarms or anything, but it was just one of those like, oh yeah, this was a thing where if you left the keys in the car like a dumbass, your car could be stolen. And since this was his first time having a car, you're just like, oh yeah, I park it, I leave the keys in the ignition. Right. There goes the car. So right. I thought that was pretty funny. And then there's the whole thing of getting it back. Yeah. I was absolutely unfamiliar with who Wolfman Jack was before I saw this.
Well, sure. Yeah.
So for the longest time, until I went and read the Wikipedia article before doing this recording, I just thought he was a fictional character.
Hey, Secret Friends Unite, let me tell you about Zencastr. We use them for our show, and now they're supporting us. Zencastr is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. It's the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content, all from one dashboard. Being a creator has never been easier. And we chose Zencastr because of the ease of use, high quality output, and it makes it super easy for our guests to come on. We had multiple solutions we tried before, and Zencastr has just been the best fit for us. Why Zencastr? It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sounds and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. Have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you're interested in making an easy, high-quality podcast just with the click of a browser button, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SFU1. You'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Now back to the show.
I mean, in a lot of ways, he was. He was a dude, but yeah, you're right. He had this persona, and Jonathan, feel free to chime in. Back in those times, and certainly in the 70s as well, people who were radio DJs, and I wrote, if I lived in those times, I would have been a DJ because this job didn't exist. They were gods. They were gods among men. They were huge personalities, and some of that still exists to today on a smaller scale. But back in the old days, they were celebrities.
Yeah, he's the Joe Rogan of his
Right.
time. Yeah, he had a huge audience. He broadcasted out of California a lot, but I mean, I know exactly. I mean, if you grew up in that time, you knew exactly who Wolfman Jack was. You would even do Wolfman Jack voices like Wolfman Jack, we're right here, baby. Come on, baby. Like you learn that as a kid if you grew up in my time. So I'm like, I thought for George Lucas to pick him to be sort of a narrator and using music to sort of tell the story, because Lucas said too, he says, we only bought so much music, and I had to use the quiet times to build drama, but Wolfman Jack creates drama, and very recognized. Excellent. I think he helps solidify the movie because it's a teen movie and teens love that guy. And because he had a sense of humor. One of the things, too, about Wolfman Jack was in one of the gags, he does a prank. He calls up a pizza place. Do you guys know this?
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
So he calls up the pizza place, and Peter, rewatch the movie so you can enjoy it even more because this is cream. He calls the pizza place and he's pranking the guy. And the guy on the other end of the phone is like, you might have the wrong number here, guy. That's George Lucas. He played the pizza guy.
That would have been his first on-screen credit, right? Unless he did something to THX.
So it's going to make you enjoy that. Yeah, it's going to make you enjoy that even more because it's one of those Easter eggs or one of those gems you just go, oh, gosh, that's so funny.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So anyway, which sort of puts it in parallel with Napoleon Dynamite because there is some humor in there. It is a coming of age like Napoleon Dynamite was. There's no vote for Pedro. But and that would have helped, I think.
There's no dance, but there is a car crash.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a great one too. I grabbed something out of that scene that I feel like shows up later in Star Wars as they're dragging him away from the car. Because obviously, our big third act capper, or as the name of our last episode was, in the climactic third act, there's a big car race between Milner and Harry Ford, Bob Phelps with Boba Fett, and Boba Fett has a blowout. The car flips over. They don't get hurt, but miraculously, Harrison Ford's shirt becomes unbuttoned. So you get a little, pre-Harrison Ford shirt or pre-Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Harrison Ford shirtlessness. But Milner does help Boba Fett out of the car, and as he's walking away, he goes, "She's gonna blow," which was the dying line of one of the X-Wing pilots in Return of the Jedi. It was a black guy who said, "She's gonna blow," and you see sparks going off around him.
Nice parallel.
Oh, I like it. He really loved it.
R2-D2 came out of that movie too. The name R2-D2. It was Real 2 something 2, and it was something that was asked for on the set. And George Lucas just shortened it to R2-D2. You can look it up. I just happened to catch it, but real, R is real, right? 2, and then I forget what D is. I don't know what D was. I wish I knew that. And then 2.
Right.
It had something to do with the scenes they were shooting or something, because real would be like the film, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where R2-D2 came from. That name.
They were using 2 different cameras, so having one reel and 2 reel made sense.
Yeah.
And then probably a deposit box or something.
Deposit box 2. Now I found a new name for the episode.
So you mentioned Harrison Ford in the crash. I do want to touch on that briefly. So I don't know how they survived that crash because that's a horrible crash. That car rolled a few times and nobody's wearing a seatbelt. So
it did have a roll bar though. I was when I was looking in the car because there's so many scenes inside these cars. I'm like looking around. He does have a roll bar.
Well, maybe that's what saved him. But they come out of the car and he's just got broken arm or something. You know, like that's all it was. And,
Right.
But Harrison Ford, when he went out for this part, I don't know if you know, but they offered him $485 a week to do this Falfa part, right? And he said no. He said, "Nah, I'm already working as he
As
worked in
carpenter.
carpentry, right? And he was making more money doing that." And so they countered offered $500, $15 more, and he took it.
Well, you know, they say everybody has this price. I read, and this didn't look like it was the case after the crash when he got out of the car, he didn't have his hat, which Milner gives back to him at the end, that Harrison Ford wouldn't cut his hair for this part.
Yes.
And that's why he wore the hat.
Yes, they wanted him to get a flat top crew cut.
Oh, okay.
And he wouldn't do it because he was already auditioning for other parts. So he's like, that's going to screw things up for me. So the compromise was the cowboy hat.
Gotcha. Peter has given us the correct definition of R2D2, which is real to dialogue to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now the name of our episode. So
mystery solved.
Mystery solved. I also wrote. Oh, I just. Why did Fed unbutton his shirt? And then I love it. So with all the fights between Cindy Williams and Ron Howard, at one point, Cindy ends up in the car with Boba Fett, and then she finds out that he's going to go race Milner. So he's driving down to Paradise Road, which is the road out of town in the valley where they lived, you know. And she's like, well, you can just let me out when we get there. And I love he reminds me of a Bender from Futurama. Why don't you shut up, baby? What a weird broad. And I'm like, what a way with the ladies. Holy shit. Why don't you shut up, baby?
Well, she was the third one that night. She was the third one that night because she had a couple of others in the car, the blonde and the
I mean, I just turned to April and I said, what a effing bimbo. That's all she has to say.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, this was obviously during a time when it was preferred that guys treated women like garbage, which is really not a very modern way to look at things. But yeah, I love the interaction between those two. Mind your business, son. Oh,
that's still going on with the 70-plus-year-old. Couples. They do that stuff all the time.
Yeah, we see it all the time with the pickleball card, don't we?
Yeah, we outgrew it. So we're
talking trash to each other.
Shut up, baby.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I wrote in after the crash, Milner is walking away and Toad's talking to him and he said, Toad, I blew it. I got scared. And he was like, you're still the greatest one in the valley, John. Nobody's ever going to beat you. And I wrote, I hope that Toad doesn't watch the Where Are They Now bubbles head over the end credits. But he wouldn't because he was in Vietnam, apparently disappearing.
Yeah, a year later.
He was busy going poof.
One of my other favorite parts at the end of the movie was the airplane that Kurt flies off on, the Magic Carpet Airlines, which is, and their airstrip or airport, which is a bunch of people standing around outside. I wrote, okay, we're in a field, get on a plane, let's go. That was air travel back in 1962. Because was it like a charter? I wrote that ticket was probably $14, inflation adjusted $5,000.
Probably a small airport. If you've ever flown into a small airport, you actually walk out to the plane, and then you run up those stairs because they were leaving without them.
A lot of airports in Europe still do that.
Yeah,
where you take a shuttle out to the plane, you disembark from the bus, and then you have to climb up into the plane.
Yeah, it's just so weird living in just a medium-sized city, as the three of us do in Grand Rapids. We have a big airport with a big concourse, and you go there and you sit and you go get on the plane. But you never go outside once you go.
Yeah, you walk down a ramp and then just sort of it hooks right to the plane. Yeah,
right.
I flew out of Westchester County Airport when I lived out east, and it's still like that. It's a small airport, and you have to walk out to the plane. You literally, you know how when you put your bag on a carousel or on a track and it takes your suitcase away. No, you literally walk up to a window and you hand it through the window and you hand it to a guy who takes it and throws it in the plane. That's Westchester County. One thing about Westchester County, it's a small airport and everybody sort of sits in one place. And I don't know if you know the wrestler Captain Lou Albano,
Oh, but of course.
but with the rubber bands on his beard and on his hair. He was sitting there one time, and I went over and sat next to him. We had a real nice chat,
That's
and
hilarious.
it was freezing in the airport, and he's wearing all Hawaiian stuff. So
Because that's where he was going, right?
I was like, he was in flip flops. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, but it was cold. I'm
Oh,
like,
my
they don't
God.
heat that airport. But anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, any final thoughts before we give a rating to the movie and then kind of wrap things up, Peter?
The side plot with Milner and the 12-year-old, 14-year-old.
Mackenzie
that
Phillips.
was-
Poor Mackenzie Phillips.
That was pretty funny. Where there was
Yeah.
a whole bunch of just
He's
he's trying to treat her
Yeah.
nicely because she's a kid, and
Yeah.
And she's extremely obnoxious.
yeah. Eventually, they kind of come to an understanding, but then he
Right.
pulls a fast one on her to get her to go home.
I forgot to you kind of teed me up to my favorite insult in the movie is when he calls her a grungy little twerp. I've got to start using that one somewhere in common vernacular.
It's an equal opportunity offender. You can use
you're
it for
right.
Anybody.
It is non-gender based, so
I
it can
think-
be applied to anyone.
We might hear it on the pickleball court. You never know.
You miss a
Grungy little twerp.
Snedeker, you grungy twerp. New name. No, I can't change the name of the episode. Real Dialogue 2 is too good. It's too good. I don't know why it gets a vote. Change it to that or not. No firm opinions. Okay, can't do it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to run through a couple of things that I saw in the film that sort of surprised me, and some of it has to do with characters and other things. First off, I learned that the poster for the movie, and it's a pretty cool poster. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh,
but
totally.
But it was drawn by Mort Drucker, who was an illustrator for Mad Magazine.
Oh, yeah. It's got that vibe.
It's an excellent poster. I've forgotten how cool it was. So that was something. Originally, when they offered the part to Richard Dreyfuss, who was really the big name on the film, they offered him Steve or Kurt. So he had his pick, and he picked Kurt. I don't know. Maybe he was hoping to meet Suzanne Summers, who was the girl in the White T-Bird. So he was very, So he was very.
At the height of her powers.
You mentioned the Magic Carpet Airlines, right? The DC-7.
Yeah, right.
That same plane was leased by Grand Funk Railroad.
GF, which is a band from Owasso, Michigan.
Yes. All right. So they had Carlos, who was Manny Padilla or Manuel Padilla Jr.
Right.
He was in Tarzan. I grew up watching that guy. So it's really weird for me to see him as a pharaoh.
Yeah.
I had a hard time with that. Bo Hopkins, that was the weirdest pick for the movie as a character. I could not get used to him at playing Joe.
Who is he?
He was in the Rockford Files. He was in a lot of the shows that I grew up watching in the 70s.
Okay.
And Bo Hopkins does not fit. If there's one weird character in that, they should have went with somebody younger, a greaser.
Yeah.
But he looked like this 40-year-old greaser. I don't understand why they picked him, and that one just sort of sticks out. As far as Peter, you mentioned the car getting stolen, which I thought was a really good take on it, because it's like, yeah, these are human beings, and they leave the keys in the car when they're first time driving. The guy that stole the car has a Tarzan connection. His dad was Johnny Weissmuller. This is Johnny Weissmuller Jr. He's the one that plays badass number one.
Oh, gotcha.
And he's the one that steals the car, and he's the one that John Milner beats up.
Yeah.
And John Milner, played by, was it Paul DeMott, I think?
Paul LaMott, yeah.
Lamont, yeah. That guy is a badass. He was a Marine. He was a Golden Gloves boxer.
Oh, damn.
I checked him out, and I was like, man, this dude played what was the lead into why they decided to go with the Fonzie character in Happy Days. People loved this John Milner guy in that coupe. So that came out of it. But yeah, Johnny Weissmuller Jr., who also was in the Ewok film.
Stop it.
That was
what?
He was a marauder in there, and he was a card-playing marauder, I guess. I don't know. I'm not an Ewoks fan. You'll have to fill me in. But he was also in THX 1138.
Oh.
He was the Chrome robot.
Peter, I'm making an amendment to our schedule. We have to talk about the Ewok movie at some point. It's on
Aren't
Disney
there
Plus.
two of them?
We have to, yes, The Caravan of Courage is the second one, which is adapted into a segment on my favorite Not Us podcast, which is the Weekly Planet. They call it The Caravan of Garbage, where they talk about old movies.
Right, yeah.
So, yes, I'm going to update our schedule later. Jonathan, you would be welcomed back, though I know we'll have to get Todd in one of them.
Does that mean we're going to have to hit up the Ewoks animated show, too?
Oh, God.
I'm reticent.
Please don't make me watch them.
No, because I tried to watch 1 or 2 episodes of Droids, and I did not make it.
My library had a VHS tape with, I think, 3 episodes, and I remember watching that a couple times as a kid.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, we'll get to reorganizing the schedule. All right. So before we give ratings, one of the questions I have here in the flow is, what do you think the legacy is of this film to Lucas's overall brand for what is to come?
I think this put him on the map.
Yeah.
I think this was a guy who knew where he was going, right? As a screenwriter. And I think this was his ticket. I think I didn't realize how important this film was to him, because his partnership with Francis Ford Coppola was really helpful to his career, no question about that. And the success of The Godfather really helped their partnership, because people took him seriously. But this movie, when you read about how they were treating this movie, like, well, we'll put it on TV. We'll put it.
Yeah, really one-headed stepchild.
We're gonna cut it. We're gonna fix it, right? And they weren't taking Lucas seriously. But once this movie hit, and it hit hard, and I remember the popularity of this movie, because I would have been 11 or 12, and I had an older brother who was 4 years older than me, and I know he saw the movie in the theater.
Yeah.
There's no question that the popularity drove George Lucas's success. I think it opened up all kinds of doors for this guy. And then he went, what was the next movie?
Star Wars, which we're going to talk about in our next segment.
Which that just blew up. I mean, he's on the map. Now he is the map. You know what I mean?
He became the definition of the map. They called it the Lucas map. Pretty much. I just did a very Trump-like expression there. We call it the Lucas map, so I apologize for doing that. Sorry. Peter, what about you?
I would tend to agree that this seems to be something that kickstarted Lucas into being like a filmmaker that people would go see. Because THX 1138 was, while an interesting film, you're not going to get a lot of people to go see that.
Because weird as shit, yes.
It's kind of leaning more towards Star Trek the motion picture in terms of just it's trying to be heady and everything, and not a lot of people are into that.
Yeah, totally. Very true, very true.
So, but this is just kind of a fun movie. It's hitting like all of the beats for like teenagers. You can definitely see, at least from my perspective, going from THX to this to Star Wars, you can definitely see Lucas kind of honing in on the audience for what will be kind of his bread and butter, as it were, which is, the 12 to 14-year-old young boy is kind of the target audience, at least originally, for like the original trilogy. And if you listen to a lot of the interviews where he's talking about like, hey, why don't you have more mature themes? And it's like, it's made for kids.
Yeah, right.
So you can kind of see that the shift is moving from kind of the Star Trek-esque kind of social commentary stuff, and then you're moving more towards kind of we're not looking at like social issues as much. We're looking more towards like the experience and the fun, but also with kind of a moral behind it, which definitely is more the vibe of the Star Wars films. Right. So taking the outside, like the filmmaking stuff out, just seeing how his story writing viewpoint is evolving, you can definitely see that shift, the big shift here in American Graffiti, which then leads into a little bit of a smaller shift, but another shift in when he starts Star Wars.
Absolutely. Good deal. All right, let's each give a 8 out of 10 rating, and then we'll wrap it up. I'll go first, since I made you guys answer that last one. This was like an 8 out of 10 for me. Great film. I did give it demerit in the end, which is why it's an 8, which I'll talk about. But for me, this was something that's really capital in not only Star Wars, obviously, and even more so to this day, but like Star Trek in general, which we always sneak a little Star Trek talk into the show. It's impossible to avoid. Was the world building and all of the kind of inside baseball references. You know, they say, you know, boss bitchin' car and I'm a ready Teddy, and like expressions and things like that, or the way people do things, or how you get into trouble, or cruising in general, or this thing and that. Is enough inside baseball that you're like, well, I don't really get the reference because I didn't live in that time, but you get that they're building their own, they have their own cinematic universe, as it were, you know, so they're building something that is very normal to them. And in this case, it's a world that a lot of people lived in, who saw this movie, who were, you know, at the same age as George Lucas. And so they really got that bit. So I absolutely love that. And it's a total precursor to Star Wars, because when that movie begins, we're in the fourth act of a 6-act movie, you know, so stuff has happened. They live in this universe. There's this evil force. There's this other force fighting it, and there's the Force and the Jedi, which were a thing in the past. And you know, so they're creating all these things that let you know you're in a fantasy world of sorts, but with enough familiar elements that even kids could, in the case of Star Wars, wrap their heads around. So I took away a couple of points, and I already talked about this. I just can't stand Ron Howard's character. He's such an effing dickhead in the way he treats Cindy Williams. Just generally, their extremely toxic relationship, while again, of the time, to look at it through a modern lens, it's terrible. So I guess I had to ding them retroactively for that. Had that not been such an extreme part of everything, I probably would have given it a 9 or a 10, because I liked it so much. Jonathan, what about you?
Well, I wasn't bothered by the Ron Howard character at all. It was very symptomatic of the time, and they shot this in '73, right? So.
Right.
So a lot of the footage is from that time, even though they went back and re-edited it in '78. For Lucas, this is a really important film. And it's not just an important film for George Lucas, but then it's also an important film for the film industry. It's also an important film for America, because it's American graffiti. And
Right.
funny, they were like, what does American graffiti mean? They still have a hard time with the title.
Right.
You know, I think Lucas would have to clear that up. Like, how did you arrive at graffiti? So, but I would give this, having lived through that time period, it's a 10 out of a 10. There's no question in my mind. People that are older than me cherish this movie. This is a movie it captures that time that was precious to them as high school students. And it's because it's their time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not somebody else's time.
Right.
And I'm close enough in age to understand that. And I think too that it's held up over time. I think that some of the character development could be stronger. I think that the script could have been stronger. But when you think about where it starts and where it ends, and how much success this movie had, and the fact that it did some things like put pop music into a movie, which really wasn't being done. I mean, as a way of, and then the Wolfman Jack character sort of telling the story with the music, and then the lives of the people are part of the scenes, and then it's got cars, which America loves cars. They just
Sure
do. It has a certain amount of teenage sex, which was, was something that people were still learning how to do at that time, because they didn't have a lot of experience, at least I hope not. And so this was the dating circuit. This was the social media of the time. You'd drive up and down the strip and you talk to people, because you didn't have Facebook or Instagram or whatever, right? So people aren't looking down at their phones. They're looking ahead, trying not to run into the car in front of them.
Right.
So for this one, and I really say this more because it's George Lucas's film. I think George Lucas, if he doesn't give it a 10 out of 10, I wonder how he really got his start, because in my book, this is what got him started.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I give it a 10 out of 10 because I think it's an important film. It's an important film to a lot of people that are in my generation and older, and I think they'll watch this movie over and over and over and just relive that
Like it's
that
their
moment.
Star Wars.
School
Right.
dances was a thing.
Yeah.
Zit cream was a thing, right? All that stuff that's going on in there. I think he captured it,
Yeah.
But and if you're studying film, you should study this film.
Yeah.
Because
He did a lot.
He figured out a lot of cool things to put in a movie that he took with him as he went forward into making even better movies. So good for him. Yeah, I was more impressed with this movie now than I was when I started doing this analysis back on Thursday or whenever.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah. Good deal. Peter, what about you?
I would probably give it like an 8.59, somewhere in there. Just because and this is more of a personal preference thing, is I just like through lines that are a little bit stronger. So being that it was mostly just kind of vignettes that were kind of telling separate stories, doing different things, it's just not my speed as much. That is nothing about the film objectively. That's just how I look at it. Like, for instance, the analogy that made way at the beginning, I hated that film. So, but this one is I like the cinematography. I like the music choice. I like a lot of the things that are going together with it. And I like, for the most part, how the character development ends. So there's a lot of good things going for this film. It's just sometimes there are moments where it was just like, wait, why are we over here now? So that's really my only ding against it. Is just sometimes it's a little all over the place. That's just
a little loose.
That's just not my thing.
I hear you.
Love it, just not my thing as much.
I gotcha. Cool.
Well, and the action film genre has really taken off. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and the big box office smashes now are Avengers or anything comic book related, right? Which that's been a shift but during the 70s, this movie, at least International Movie Database, ranks it second in teen movies.
Wow.
Second.
Wow, even still 50 years later.
Yeah, and for the 1970s. And the number one ahead of it, Bad News Bears.
That deserves a watch, because I feel like it's been an awesome long time.
But a lot of humor in there, and Anyway.
Oh my goodness! Well, with that, we're gonna wrap up the show. This has been awesome, Jonathan. Welcome to the Three Ring Circus. Welcome to the main event.
Charlie, Peter, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, being on one of our core shows. Where do people find you out there if they want to interact with you about American Graffiti?
Just reach out to me through LinkedIn. It's the easiest, and it's the safe space.
It is still a protected, safe space in a lot of ways. Peter, what about you?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas on most social platforms, but mostly you're going to find me on the Secret Friends Unite Discord, because I'm just not super active on social media.
And the Discord is fantastic, which was going to be the first thing I was going to say. Our Discord is the best way to connect with anyone in our Secret Friends Unite, both our people who do the shows and then the people who listen to our shows and like to interact. That's the best place to do it. That's where the main thrust of everything happens. But you can find me out on my big social media, my big three social free media. Blah, blah, I think I'm having a stroke. You can find me on Instagram and Threads and Blue Sky as at the C3 TheCeeThree. But yeah, Discord, find us there. And if you're not currently a Discord user, send myself or any of us a ping and we'll send you an invitation. We'll get you on board. But with that, we're going to wrap things up. Peter, I still don't think I've calculated a sign off besides my normal saying, thanks for joining us. And I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
May the force be with you.
Goodbye, everyone.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.